You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that had, has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health Podcast, and I have Jen Fisch, founder of Keto In The City. The website is also ketointhecity.com, and unfortunately I missed her in person, but Jen was speaking at the recent Metabolic Health Summit in California, which was a great event, which she may talk about briefly. And Jen, thanks for coming on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, excellent. Well, tell me your hero origin story of how you got involved with keto.
Sure. Yeah, I have myself been struggling with autoimmune disorders for the last 20 plus years. I have psoriatic arthritis and psoriasis, and so it's been a long journey of finding different things that help. And one of the things that I always looked to was what I was eating, and sugar is super inflammatory. And so I kept doing research, and throughout the years tried different things until 3 years ago I found keto, and have been doing it ever since, just to try to help control my inflammation as best as possible. So that's kind of how I started. And then from there it just turned into something much bigger than I thought it would be.
So what was the event that got you started on keto, or was it just I've got to try something else, I've had enough?
Well, 10 years ago or so, I had gone to a doctor who recommended cutting out sugar. And so that was kind of the initial foray into noticing that sugar had an impact on my inflammation. And then from there, I did the Atkins way of eating for a while. And then I had kind of dropped off of that for a while and started trying some different things, was gluten-free for a while and whatnot. But then was having issues again. And so I was I liked Atkins, but I was always hungry with that high protein approach. And so I just kept kind of doing research, and that's how I found keto originally, that it was pretty similar in the principles of the low carb, but with the added healthy fats that I felt was maybe kind of the answer for me not being kind of hangry the entire time, that I was also trying to help myself out. So that's really how I started. And I have a very long, arduous, journey with medications and whatnot. And that's actually what I spoke about at the Metabolic Health Summit, was kind of that entire journey. And I have a post about it on my blog, but so really that's what got me going the last 3 years. And, it's been a little bit of a, trial and error, just figuring out what balance of medication and lifestyle and whatnot. And there's always ups and downs, but overall I've found it to be a really sustainable way of eating for me.
So you said you did Atkins and you were hangry. I noticed when I started keto, at first I was ravenously hungry. It took me a while to settle in. So what was your experience with keto? Do you remember the days when you first started it and what it was like the first week?
Yeah, I was totally I think everyone has that experience where in the beginning you eat a lot more than once you get fat adapted. So I always try to tell people that that's super normal. And I also never really recommend tracking all of your calories and whatnot in the beginning, because your body will, like you said, settle in eventually. So just understanding what has carbs in it and what the sugar and whatnot, I think is most important in the beginning. And just give yourself some time and your body some time to kind of figure out what's happening and learn how to like process this new way of eating. But yeah, that's super, super normal. And now when I feel like that, if I go back to feeling like super hungry during periods of time, I'm like, oh, well, that probably means that I'm not in ketosis right now. So it's just an interesting way, I think. And one thing that keto's really done for me is allow me to learn how to listen to my body a lot more and take cues from it that I might have like ignored otherwise. But it's like, oh, why am I so extra hungry right now? And, realizing that there's probably a reason. I think it's powerful once you're in tune with your own body.
Well, that's good. That's interesting you say that. Any other cues that you found that may not occur to people or people are having and they just, oh, I didn't know that?
Well, I mean, I think one of the biggest benefits of keto that people probably will notice like pretty early on is just how much better you sleep when you're on keto. It allows you to really like have solid sleep because your body's not kind of like having all that sugar in its system to kind of disrupt that. So I think that's a huge indicator. And I think that's one of the most powerful benefits. I know myself, like I sleep really well when I sleep. And now my struggle is that I just need to like sleep more. I need to like go to bed earlier and get more of that like great sleep. But I think that's an awesome benefit. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah. One thing I found is that I guess I'll fool myself. Sometimes I'll have, I don't know, I'll go to a movie and have popcorn. I think, I'll recover by tomorrow, but it does affect my sleep best. I don't sleep well when I do that, so I try not to. So yeah, I probably don't sleep maybe as well as you, even though I do sleep longer hours. But I definitely notice when I screw up the sleep by not eating right. So I'd agree. Big time.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. But yeah, I mean, everyone's a little bit different, but I love, for me, I noticed once I started, I think it's just once you clean up your diet in general, you start to notice how things affect you. But, I mean, for me, nightshades can be a problem. Like I can, if I eat too many, like I can eat a tomato slice, like on a hamburger or something, protein style burger, of course. But if I used to snack on like grape tomatoes like all the time. They were like one of my favorite things. And now if I eat more than a couple slices of tomatoes, like my 20 minutes after eating them, like my hands will just ache. Like, and so,
really?
Yeah. And so I would have never really known like that a food was causing that inflammation before. And so I just think it's great that you can get to know your body a little bit better, and not everyone's going to have that reaction. But if you're super sensitive to nightshades and if you have autoimmune disorders or whatever, then you're more likely to be sensitive to those things. And it's just nice to be able to kind of figure that out and get to know your body a little bit better.
So what would be your, non-doctorly advice? If, someone does the keto diet, maybe they have a condition or two, they improve, but maybe they don't improve 100%. Do you suggest they take next steps to refine it like you did and, see what's missing, or, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always a state of tweaking, like if you look at keto or any kind of way of eating, but we'll use keto. If you look at it as a lifestyle or a way that you're going to eat for the rest of your life, there's always going to be changes, or there should be, if you're not feeling like your optimal self at one point. So whether it's like, well, maybe I should look at my dairy intake, or maybe I should look at nightshades, or maybe I'm, whatever it might be, there might be times where you want to be a little bit more higher protein than you are at other times or whatever. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it. I think the trap that some people fall into is they feel like they have to follow all these rules and they have to understand their exact macros and they have to eat it to the gram and they have to, all of these things, where to me that just makes it more stressful and less of a lifestyle. I do think it's helpful to keep track of things when you're first starting, because you just don't really know what's in food until you get used to it. But overall, I think the biggest mistake some people make is just being so restrictive with themselves that it just can't be something that they do for the rest of their lives. So that's what I always tell people, understand that this could change. And just because you're eating exactly this way right now doesn't mean that you can't tweak it in the future, or if your body's not feeling 100%, like try something different. But the other thing I always, especially for people with autoimmune disorders like myself, is I want to make very clear that keto is not, a cure for my autoimmune disorders. Like I'm on, heavy medication. I always have been. I have like joints that are destructing, so I have to be on medication, and no like diet's going to fix that. And so it's, for me, a powerful like thing that accompanies the medication that I'm on, and it's something that I feel like I have power over and that I can do for myself. But it's certainly not the only answer for the conditions that I have. It's just a really great complement to the different medications that my doctors have prescribed for me.
Well, how much better off do you feel if you just assign a percentage now with the keto diet plus your meds versus just meds alone?
Yeah, I think I could say in the first couple of years it was hard because all my medications were working really well, and so it was like, wonder if this is working. And then my medications stopped working, and that's something that happens fairly common with like the biologic type medications. Your body gets used to them and they stop working. And so about a year ago, that happened to me. And so for the last year, I've actually been like trying to find a combination of medicines that work, and not totally successfully so far. And so the fact that for the last year I've been able to, function in life and get out of bed and go to work and take care of my daughter and do all the things that I need to do. There's been other times in my life where I can't get out of bed. I can't even get in my car or whatever. So a percentage wise would be hard to pinpoint, but I know what it can be like. And I've had probably the busiest and most successful year of my life in the last year. So I'm glad that I was able to be around for it and into it and excited for it. But it definitely made a huge difference in that way, just as I'm, like I said, still searching for a medication combination that's going to work as well as the one I was on previously was when it was working. So it's made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me about Keto in the City. What's the site about, and what's the whole business about?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so I guess a month into keto, I started an Instagram, Keto in the City, and I really just started it because I didn't think my friends wanted to see me posting food on my normal page. And so I was like, I kind of want an anonymous page where none of my friends knew about it, or my coworkers or anything like that. And so I started that. And then after about a year of having that Instagram, I just kind of wanted a place where I could write longer recipes. And so the blog started, and then it just all started growing from there. And then about maybe a year after that, they reached out to me to write my first cookbook, the easy 5-ingredient ketogenic diet cookbook. And so it all just kind of like dominoed in a really awesome way and was totally unexpected. I have a full-time job. I'm a creative director at an advertising agency, but the keto stuff has been like huge passion project of mine, and it's just kind of crazy to see how it's grown. And like I said, it was just started as an anonymous page. It was never started as like a business or anything like that, but it's become a really cool part of my life. And on Keto in the City, I just try to share tips, and I try to answer FAQs and share recipes, of course, and just give people all the information they need to start keto, and then also just to continue on. And then I do share my autoimmune story on there as well, kind of in its entirety, which is a long story, but that's all on there as well. So, and I think it's cool that a lot of people who maybe know me from Instagram, but different people find me on my website, whether it's from the books or from searching for autoimmune disorders and keto and things like that. So it's been a fun way to connect with a lot of different people who are interested in keto for a lot of different reasons.
What kind of feedback do you get that you respond to? Maybe stuff that strikes you as surprising, or things that a lot of people seem to have questions about?
Yeah, I think the interesting part is just like how many people are looking for answers for so many different things. And so it's been great to get testimonials of people who have my cookbooks now, and who've lost a bunch of weight. I got one from a guy last week who has already lost like 35 pounds this year just from, learning to cook through my cookbook and switching to the keto lifestyle. So, I mean, of course, those are the best stories. And then also just other people who have psoriatic arthritis or psoriasis like myself and, just don't know anything about keto and want to start. And so I have some YouTube videos and different things on some of those topics that people connect with. And, I got psoriatic arthritis when I was 19, and I've never known another person in real life who has psoriatic arthritis. And so it's just really nice. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. So it's just really nice to be able to talk to other people who have similar experiences.
Definitely. Do you have people that, it's not all success stories, any outliers or people that are struggling and they seem to be doing a lot of things right, but they need a nudge or two to fix them?
I think the biggest thing that is just people sticking with it. I think there's a lot of people in general who have really like maybe unrealistic expectations of that this is going to like be a super quick fix, or that they can kind of go in and out of doing keto and have the same kind of success. So I think the hardest thing for me is, you don't really know like what people are eating on a daily basis. And then they ask questions that it's just hard to give them an answer without the full picture. But I always try to just make sure people understand that, a week in, 2 weeks in, like you really shouldn't be stressing. You should just try to get used to the keto lifestyle. You should give it a couple months to really start feeling like full energy effects and the good sleep and really the benefits of being in ketosis and all the healing, depending on what your body's going through and who you are and what issues you have. Like I feel like the body looks to heal itself before it might focus on something like losing weight, like that's at least how I like to look at it. But yeah, I think so.
You know what? Don't gloss over that. I think that's a really important insight because I'm sure, most people with keto, it's all about weight. But I think you're right. Maybe it takes, maybe you've had a problem for 10, 15 years. So maybe the first 6 months is your body, like you said, healing itself, and then it's ready to lose weight and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm, certainly not a doctor, but it makes sense to me. And so I try to like reassure people that, if you've been eating a certain way for 40 years, 30 years, 50 years, whatever the case may be, like, it's a big change for your body to switch over to a new way. And you have to like love your body and give it some time to do what it needs to do. So just have some patience with yourself and have some patience with the process, and then notice some of those other changes, because weight loss is not the only change that comes with being in ketosis or being keto. And so really looking for those other areas that you're noticing improvement.
Yeah, another distinction. Do you see being in ketosis or, going keto or doing keto as the same things? And do you think it's important to distinguish the two, or are they kind of the same?
I mean, I think that when you're following a keto lifestyle, like the goal is to try to be in ketosis. You're not always going to be in ketosis. You could get, certainly kicked out here or there. But I think the most healing properties come from when you are in that state of ketosis. So at least for me, the goal is to try to be in that state as much as possible. I know there's other people who do different routes, and maybe that's because they're not necessarily, they don't have autoimmune issues, or, they're doing it for different reasons where they can cycle in and out, or maybe they're only like truly in ketosis for, a couple weeks out of the year if they do like extended fasts or things like that. But for me, I'm looking for healing. So I feel like it's important to try to stay in that state as much as possible. Otherwise, I feel like you're more like in a low carb kind of a lifestyle, because, the keto comes from being in ketosis. So for me, that's always the goal. I have gone through periods where I track more, or then other periods where I don't track as much and try to go by feel. I'm going to start tracking again, just to kind of see where I'm at. Maybe not like multiple times a day or anything, but just try to like dial that in a little bit more and see where I'm at. But I think it's a powerful place. Being in ketosis is a powerful place to be. I certainly feel better when I'm in it. I know that for sure.
Okay. So what events do you have planned for Keto in the City, for this year for this year?
That's a good question. I'm not much of a planner, so I haven't planned anything in my keto journey so far. I wasn't planning on ever doing a cookbook, and now I have 3. So the last one just came out a couple weeks ago. So, kind of trying to see what the next phase of this will be. But for now, just continuing to kind of grow the blog and look for other opportunities to share with people. And probably my first keynote speaking was at the Metabolic Health Summit. So it was great to be able to share my story. And a lot of people afterwards came to me and shared their own autoimmune stories, or that of their kids or their spouse or whatever. So that was really great to connect with people on that level. So I would definitely not mind sharing my story with more people in other places in that way, because I do want people to understand that keto's not, there's so many great like before and after pictures for weight loss and whatnot. And I think that's so amazing and obviously super life-changing, but it's just not the only reason to do keto.
Right.
And I really want to be able to share that story however and wherever that might end up being. So I'll probably look to do more of that this year, and then we'll just see what else comes my way.
All right, very good. Very good. So what's the best way for people to find your cookbooks and to, look at your blog and check you out?
Yeah, well, definitely my Instagram, it's at Keto in the City, and then an underscore at the end. Is a great way. It has links to everything. And then ketointhecity.com. You can sign up for my emails, and I send out like weekly keto mails where people can get some tips and recipes and stuff. So those are great ways.
Okay, very good. Well, Jen, thanks for coming on the podcast, and I got some good insights from talking to you, so I appreciate you being here.
Well, good. Thanks for having me, and thanks for spreading the keto word.
Definitely.
You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.